Okay, we'll cut out the beginning. The voice note, the first one? Okay. This is very fancy, Sarah. Now it's following me. You know when you get like targeted so many times on Instagram and you're like, fine, I'll buy it. So it was one of these cool things that like follow you around. Happens to be, I saw Dini Delivers Prep and Rally. She had it, and I was like, oh, all of a sudden like you find it, and then like he sends you a promo code, and we're very excited. So it moves along with me. Okay, so welcome everybody. Anybody here new first time?
Yeah, Shani.
First time. Oh, and my mother's here. Welcome everybody joining. Okay, so first of all, so nice that you all came out. I have to say that like I kind of love this whole Purim weekend. Like I'm enjoying it. Like it's kind of like everyone's like, oh, it feels like a whole weekend, but it's so nice because like today was the fast. If you fasted, no judgment if you didn't. I clearly didn't. And I don't know clearly, but so. And then I feel like you don't have to rush out to like put on the costumes tonight, whatever, and you still have more time if you didn't order everything from Amazon because some of my stuff are still coming tomorrow, you know? So you still have the extra day, and then it's like after Shabbos, you go into it. It's like such a nice way to go into Purim because usually we feel such lachat, so now it's just like spread out a little bit more evenly, and it's really nice. So welcome back. So welcome to the new people, and we'll try to like catch you up. It's also a little bit of a slower version this time around, so anybody who's been here round one will be like, oh, this sounds familiar, but it's just like a drop deeper. So when we ended last week, happens to be Paloma was saying like, we had a little after Tanya class. If you want to stick around while we eat like all the food that's on the table left over, you can stick around. But we were talking about how like at the end, we didn't say that also the Nefesh Bahamas could be a good thing, right? I feel like that's where kind of we ended off. So the last thing that we said was that we ended off discussing the four elements of your nefesh that are found within your blood. Do you remember that? We were talking about how the first soul that you are given comes from where? What side does that come from? Where does the nefesh hamas come from? What did it say? It said that it comes from a place of klipa and sitra achra. That this first soul that we're given, it does not call a nefesh hamas yet. It just says that it's a nefesh from the world of klipa and sitra achra. So klipa and sitra achra are what? What's sitra achra? The other side, right? Like what we would call the Yetzirah, right? And then it's also from the world of Klipa, which means that it comes covered like in a husk, okay? Like in a peel that you have to like a corn on the cob and you have to like peel it off. That's how that neshama first comes down. And that is found where? Where is that nefesh found? In your blood. It's like the drive that keeps you alive. The way for us to be able to like imagine it, it's like the blood that's flowing through our body. And we said within that blood, it contains the four elements of your life, right? The four elemental fire, which we said was like anger, right? Or ego. And then we said that there's elemental sand, and that's what? Earth is... That's scoff. I know, I love that word. Right, that's wind. Wind, air is like scoffing, right? Or like laughing, right? Like just being loose, right? Earth was like laziness, depression, right? Like thickness, heavy, right? It's coming back now, yeah? And then the last one was water, which we said water brings everything together. Water is like tanog, like pleasures and lusts, all of that, okay? So all of that sounds like, oh my goodness, this is terrible, right? This is what we explained. Remember, we started off by coming in asking the Rebbe, like our first question. We said that each parak is going into Yechidus with the Rebbe. So we came in with the first parak being like, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. I know exactly what to do, but somehow I just don't practice it. I know it, I hear things, I learn it, and I can't incorporate it. Some days I feel like I'm being pulled to the house of the idols, and some days I feel like I'm being pulled to the house of worship. What's in Medrashios, right? So, and then we explained what was it like when we first came into the Rebbe, the first Yechidus, what he answered us, and he's like, it's fine, Faigy, don't worry, you're fine. Why? Because you have twins inside of you, right? So the twins inside of you is that these two nefesh, these two neshamos. So the first way for us to like understand, like we're going to be okay. Like we asked the Rebbe, like, are we going to be okay? And he's like, yeah, you're fine. You're just pregnant with twins, right? And now let's try to figure out how to do it. Okay, fine. So now I know that I'm not crazy and I feel different pulls and different desires, but it's fine because I have two neshamas. Remember, Rivka was thinking, like, in her mind, like, if it was one person, then she would be really, really struggling because that would be really bad. Then my kid is really crazy. But the fact that I have one whose proclivity is to do good and one is proclivity is to do bad, she was fine with it. And remember, we explained that it's because she understood that even if a kid like Esav is born with negative powers, we're going to harness it and we're going to use it for the good. Okay? Then we started off by explaining what this nefesh was, that it comes from Sitra Achra and it comes from the world of Klipa. And then this nefesh is found in your blood. Okay, now, what's very reassuring about Baal Tanya is he's like, don't worry. I know there's bad, right? But like people say, like, give me the good news first, bad news first, right? Bad news first is like, you have this nefesh, right? And this one has a lot of like bad drives that will take you to the other places, right? To these wrong places. But bottom line, this nefesh could also be used for the good. Don't worry. I highlighted this time because I was like, last time I was like looking through the whole thing. I needed my nukudos. I need everything good. But he says, the gam midos tovos, shebeteva kol Yisrael, b'tol sam, kamo rachmanas, kmilas chasadim, uba'os mimena. That you don't have to worry because from that soul also stems very good things. So here's an interesting part to Tanya, which we did not discuss first time around, is that this concept is specific to Yidden, okay? That we have this nefesh that has negative drives, but don't worry because you guys are born, there's actually a song for it and I just can't remember who sings it, like that Bnei Yisrael are Baishanim, Rahmanim, and Avram Fried. Okay, did we discuss this? Did we discuss this last week? Yes, we did. I was reviewing what's wrong. Right. That's what you said. So bottom line, you don't have to worry because we have built in a natural proclivity to be humble, to be kind, and to be compassionate. So you don't have to worry. Like, because at first you would read it and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting so scared. Like, oh my gosh, I am a lazy person. Oh my gosh, I do get angry. Oh my gosh, I do this. But don't worry because you have within you, in that neshama, also good things. And also as a yid, you're just naturally built in with this nature of trying to do good. Just like you might be built in with a nature to be lazy, which is okay, that you didn't choose to it, you just have a natural proclivity, but you're lucky because you're also born with something good. You're also born with compassion and with kol b'chasadim. But the truth is that the way that Tanya brings it down, it says that this is special for Yidden. This neshama, it says, Ki b'Yisrael nefesh zu de klipa. We happen to have a neshama with the klipa. And what's that klipa called? We started saying this last week. We said, Hi klipas noga, sheyesh ba gam kein tov, v'hi misod eitz hadas tovara. So we happen to have a klipa on ours, and if you peel off that klipa, you're going to find good. What we're saying is that Yidden specifically are born with a klipas noga. We have something on top of us that's blocking us. Why am I what? Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize. Okay. I know, it's very cool. It's like moving with me. I don't know. Some of them who obviously forgot to mute themselves. So what we're saying is that we have this klipas noga, which is also something good. So what was this klipas noga? What did we describe it as?
Like nails.
Like nails, like shiny, like a translucent covering above, over us, okay? So imagine like the closest way, okay, the closest way to describe this is a grape. Okay, a grape has a translucent peel that you can peel off, and that translucent peel makes it look shiny. It's not shiny in itself, but that kind of covers it to make it shiny. And all we have to do is spend all of our life, like it's not so hard, just peeling off klipas. That's all we have to do. So where did this come from? It originated from, and it starts by saying, Hi misod eitz hadas tovara. What happened during the time of like those few hours that we spent in Gan Eden? What happened to Adam and Chava after they ate from the tree? And why, when they ate from the tree, what was the whole thing? What was the name of the tree? What were they doing by eating from the tree? They were like testing the waters, right? And it was the tree of eitz hadas tov ura, right? That it was good and bad. And within it, it was like this idea where before they ate from the tree, remember there was an Eitz HaChaim and then an Eitz Hadas Tov Ura. There were two trees. Everybody always forgets about the Eitz HaChaim. But there was the Eitz HaChaim and the Eitz Hadas Tov Ura. When they ate from that tree, essentially what happened was when good and evil were separate on one side, when they ate from that tree, they brought that inside of them. That evil now becomes inside of them, and everything became a mixture. It just became like, it's like when you take the bottom of the coffee and then you pour in the milk, right? Like beautifully, nicely, like a blogger, right? And you like spin it around and you make a mixture. That's exactly what happened to them when they ate from the tree. And immediately, what was the first reaction? What was the first thing that happened when they ate from the tree?
They saw they were naked.
They saw that they were naked. They all of a sudden were ashamed. Look at that. Esther Schoenfeld. My mother went to school in Lower East Side. That was like the exact of that. All of a sudden they realized that they were naked, and it says Hashem gave them clothing. By the way, this is where I always talk about Hashem made them clothing. I remember learning this as a kid, that he made them nails. Like, that their skin, that their clothing they made was like thick like nails. That's what it was. It was really a klipas nova. That was the first thing. Their immediate reaction was like, 1 second. Let's say my reproductive organs, right? Like, oh my gosh, is this something that's used for good or for bad? I'm not sure. I'm ashamed. Oh my gosh, let me cover it. Before that, there wasn't a problem because they saw what was good and they saw what was bad, and everything that they saw in this world, they were able to use immediately for the good because they saw it. As soon as they ate from the tree, it just became a mixture. And by the way, since then, that's our avoda. Like, our whole job is, Rabbi Yossi has this amazing share on called Avodas Habirurim, which is basically teaches us that our whole avoda, our whole task here in this world is separating and sifting the good from the bad. All we are doing is peeling off klipas our whole life. You go into a room and you go into the grocery and you find the kosher food. You're peeling off the klipas from that whole store, and now you take out the kosher food. You take a grape, which is like neutral. It didn't do anything bad. It didn't do anything good. I mean, if it made it into wine, then it did something good. But immediately if I make a bracha on it, I lifted off that klipas noga. Human beings, all of us have klipas noga. The second that you see somebody and you're like frustrated with them or something like that, if you are able to sift and peel off that layer and you know that they're yid and you know that deep down inside of them, no matter what, that neshama is covered with a klipa, it just makes everything easier by knowing that this is what our task is. Hashem gave them clothing, but the clothing that he gave them was a see-through clothing because he still wanted you to be able to see the essence inside. So this is a special thing that's given specifically to Yidden. There is a concept that most people that are born nowadays do have a klipas noga. We were talking about this before, and I was learning with Tzipora. Like, back in the day, like, human beings, like, I think about this all the time, like how they wanted to, like, anytime the Crusader, yeah. I use that. No, you can't use that. Sorry. The idea where, like, human beings were much more violent than they are now. Like, I think about like the Crusaders, like the way that they were just like murdering people. Obviously, we have our like October 7th. I'm not like taking away from that, but back in the day, humans were much more. I mean, like the Roman theaters, like what were they doing? They were just like, they were barbaric, right? Like really barbaric. Like I hear stories of like the Yidden during the time of like the Baal Shem Tov, and like Russians just walked in and like, let's round up some Jews, let's kill some Jews. So there is an idea that like there are Hasidei Umos HaOlam and Tzadikei Umos HaOlam and like people who saved Yidden during the Holocaust. But as we're getting, I think, closer to Mashiach, I think more and more neshamas are coming down with klipas, that there is a sense of morality, even though maybe we've lost it since October 7th, but there is an idea. And nowadays, more people are born with it, but this is something very, very specifically given to Yidden, and it's something that we have to appreciate and we have to treasure. Okay, so this concludes like Parak Aleph, like from doing it inside, whatever we did. Okay, now we're going to move on to Parak Beis. Parak Beis is the introduction and introducing us to this Nefesh Elokis, which is the godly soul. So before we get into it, what does anybody remember about this Nefesh Elokis from like the first time around?
It wants to go back up.
It just wants to go back up, right? It comes from where? Where does it emanate from? We said the other one came from the other nefesh comes from the side of Sitra Achra and from Klipa. Where does this nefesh come from?
This is like everything from Hashem.
This is everything from Hashem. Anybody remember how Hashem gave us this neshama?
A piece of Hashem.
He what?
A piece of Hashem.
A piece of Hashem, yes. Chelak Elokam Imal Mamish, like a real piece of Hashem, yeah. But how did Hashem get it into us?
Like breathing in.
He breathed it in, yeah. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. He blew into our nostrils its breath. So if we say that first nefesh is really originates and formulates in the blood, this nefesh, this one of Elokis, comes with breath. It's different. It's a different idea. They're different, like they're totally two different entities. They're really very different. So what does it say inside? It says, V'nefesh Hashenis b'Yisrael, hechelak elkam ima'el mamish. That means that it's a part of Hashem, and that line of Chelak Elkam Imal Mamish is actually from Eov. Eov says these words that the neshama, that this nefesh that we have is a part of us that keeps us alive, is from Hashem, like Mimal, from above, and the Baal Tanya adds these words Mamish. We have a Thank You Hashem song, Chelak Elkam Imal Mamish, with Joey Newcomb. This is already like our second Thank You Hashem song. First one's Peel Off the Klivas. I'm always like, let's play a game. How many Thank You Hashem songs can we get through in this class? So Chelak Elkam Mamish, it's actually from Hashem. So what does Mamish mean? Like literally. So this nefesh is literally from Hashem. Okay, so now let's first understand what it means. It says v'nefesh hashenis v'Yisrael. This is the second soul. So now my first thought is like, this one's the important one. Like this one should probably come first. Like we should talk about this guy. This is the guy that really like connects us to Hashem, is everything spiritual, everything that we need and we want in life. So this should really be the first one that we're talking about. So why does it say that this is the second one?
You get it later.
You get it later, right? Like literally, if this is like the story of our lives, if this is what we're talking about, if we're literally teaching about our lives, this one comes later on. Happens to be, do you know when it comes? Bar Bas Mitzvah. That's when it starts to come. Now, here's the thing, and I just learned this with Tanya 2.0, that actually this nefesh, this neshama comes into you, but it takes a while for it to integrate into who you are, that you could develop a moral consciousness. So, by the way, for boys, it enters at the first time that it starts to come, like the first phase of integration, is by its bris. Peel off the klipa, and then the neshama comes. The nefesh elokis comes. That's the idea of bris milah. Happens to be my father did, my two older boys. My father was a doctor, a surgeon, and he did both of their bris milahs. And I think about it like when you're like a young mother, you're like, I have no idea what's going on. But now we know that like before in bar mitzvah, this is when the neshama starts to fuse in. And then as you hit bar mitzvah, it solidifies a little bit more that you become morally held accountable, right, at bar mitzvah. Like, it's like for kids, it's like all about fast days. Like, you know, like we just came from a fast day and it's like, I have one more fast before my bas mitzvah. Like, and I'm like thinking if we only knew that this was so much more, that this was so much more than just fasting. You know what I mean? Like we wrap our minds around the kids think about that. But really the truth is that when this neshama starts to come in, it goes in phases. And it's totally, by the way, revamping the way that I think of like puberty and adolescence and like teenagers. And if anybody has teenagers, like, it starts way before. I think about it all the time. Like with girls and like as they're going through puberty, you're like, what is actually happening to their body? And now it's like, this is what's happening. It's like slowly integrating. This other neshama is starting to come in. Before then, it's like I will scream all day until I get what I want because all I have is the nefesh habahamis, right? It's like a baby. If the baby was born with a nefesh elokis, it would be like, you know what? 20 more minutes till my next feeding, right? You know what, Ma, you probably need a break right now, so I don't need to take a bath this minute, right? But they don't. They don't have that capability, and that's because all they have is their nefesh habahamis. So, and that nefesh habahamis is very self-serving. But remember, that nefesh habahamis also has good things when it peels off the klipas. But start thinking about your teenagers in such a different way. It like changed. I'm like, shoots, like I have a 17-year-old, so I lost it with her, but like, as you get older, the neshama continues to integrate more and more. And another big phase of when these two neshamas start to integrate is through marriage. I don't know why Shei's Taub explains it that it does. And I'm like trying to think like, like what does that mean? And I realized like when you get married, like you have to make so much space for somebody else. Yeah, Paloma's like, I got it. Okay, yeah, tell me. Rabbits and Paloma, let's go.
I just heard it today. The Rav was saying in his Purim, how like Hashem, when the world was created and He separated light and darkness, you step into like when you're in an energy flowing. Also reminded me of like when you were speaking about your father, how like movement and when you step out of movement, it's dark, and it creates that space and that light and that ability to separate out, and you need, but separating is good. So like when you have a baby, you have to create space to grow. Similarly to when you get married, you also have to like create a space for someone else. So like it makes sense.
And then once you make the space and realize that the space is good, then you could have a yichud, right? That's the idea of like marriage, right? So it's like the yichud room, right? Like what is yichud? It's this idea. It's like there's so many things that we have like growing up that like we're like, you know, like I always associate like bar mitzvah, fasting, right? Like the idea of of yichud, of making space for something else, and then allowing for the two to integrate. So through marriage, your nefesh elokis and your nefesh Bahamas have to start working like 10 times harder than they did during puberty, because like you just met this guy, and like all of a sudden now you're living with him, and all of a sudden maybe you have children, right? And it happens very fast. That those two neshamas integrating keeps on happening. It keeps developing, and the more you fuse those two together, the healthier, emotionally healthier you are. So number one reason why it's called secondary, why this neshama is referred to as like hanefesh hashenis, is because it integrates later on in life. Another reason why it becomes secondary is very, very interesting. When we, the mashal that Sheistal gave is that like of a stone wall. Like, or if you ever see like a building when they're like it's being destroyed, I'm like, there's like on my route, my kids' doctors are all in like Lake Success, Mineola. Anybody else was going there? Like New Hyde Park. I'm like, what is there? Like, you know, exit 23 and you need to turn back. If you miss the turn by mistake, then you end up on the wrong highway. But like Dr. Herman, right? Like over there. Every doctor's office is over there. Marcus Avenue. So when
I should really go home. I really need one.
I know, and then like the waves keeps going up, and you're like, no, I needed to be there. But yeah, okay. So on my way to the doctor's office, there's this huge building that they're they're just doing over the whole front, and I'm watching it like as it's going down. And when a stone wall is being destroyed, the top bricks, they fall the farthest. The bricks from the bottom, they're closer to the wall, but the bricks from the top, they fall the farthest. When Hashem first created this world, and the way that we have to imagine it is that the things that were the highest, the things that were the first, fell the farthest. The things that came from a world, and when the world first started, the world started with what we refer to as the energy of tohu. Tohu is what? What does tohu mean? Emptiness, chaos. This is recording. Emptiness, chaos, right? Like a world of mess, crumpled up papers. Like the way that you can imagine is like, you know when you have to write an essay and you have to write like a first draft of it? So like you're like writing on there, and then like you give it into your teacher, and then your teacher takes with like red pen, you know, and she like crosses it out as like SP, like for spelling, right? And then she like writes things on the side, and then she makes an arrow for you to indent. So that first page is always very messy. Or let's say like somebody who's writing a novel, right? Like, and they write a page and then they crumple up and like throw it on the floor, and they write another page and crumple up. Yeah. And they crumple it on the floor. So that was how, when Hashem was first creating the world, he was creating worlds and then they were falling apart, and creating worlds and they were falling apart. And it's a very, very deep concept in Kabbalah, and I don't fully really understand this, but there were worlds that were created before this actual world that we live on. And those worlds came from the world of Tohu. But guess what? Those worlds came first. And in Hasidus, we learn this concept very, very strongly. It's like a very important concept, that sometimes the things that are the most chaotic and the most like off sparks and like, you know, the most creativity and the most out, like the way that he described it is like those people who become like overnight successes. Like I was imagining like the Wolf of Wall Street, like Leonardo DiCaprio, just like money, money, money. The world of chaos, that world actually came first. But it couldn't stand. It didn't have the kalim to stand. So it just fell apart. It almost like burst. This neshama that we first got comes from that world. This first nefesh that we got comes from a world of tohu, a world of Esav, a world of creativity and craziness. And, you know, sometimes like we call these kids like the off the derech kids, the kids who like have this angry streak in them, like, right? My phone's right here. You're the best. Sorry, I have somebody here on Instagram. This idea where that chaotic world did not have the legs to stand on, and it fell. That neshama that we have, it's really the first one. It comes, that first one that comes to us. Think about it. Who was born first, Esav or Yaakov? Who was born first? Esav, right? Esav came out first. That world of Tohu was the real thing. And if you utilize, yeah, okay. Sarah's going to tell you something. The idea where, I know, sorry, like it's just, this is like real life, like I know, but she like wants to stay up for Tanya, so she's like very happy.
It's like a parenting course.
What? Right, it's like here I am, I'm actually, I'm super calm mommy, like I don't lose it, no, I put my, like, what is it, Moshal Talev, it's fine. Okay, so, no, it's really, she's fine, she's very calm. But this idea that this first neshama comes from a much darker and scarier place should not scare us as personality-wise, as like, oh my gosh, like what is this? This actually is a little bit more spiritual. This is a little bit higher, and that's why we don't fully understand it, because anything that, it's wrapped in klipas. It's wrapped in layers and layers of husks and peels that we have to peel away to see. But when we say that this Nefesh Elokis is secondary, it's really because it's secondary in where it originated from, and really where it came from. So really, Tohu came first. Tohu, Esav. And that's why, by the way, Yaakov, Yitzchak, I always wonder, I'm like, was Yitzchak like not smart? Like, did Yitzchak like not know that like really Yaakov was the good one? What did he see in Yitzchak? What did Yitzchak see in Esav? He did. He actually had very good kibbut of aim. He did. But what? Potential, right? He's like, oh my gosh, he's a potential. He's the hunter. He's the one who could utilize. He has all the koichas. He has the energy of tohu. He is the creative. He's the artist. He is he has all that energy. He could have been David HaMelech. David HaMelech came from the same place, by the way. David HaMelech came from that world of, right? He was a redhead, right? Where does like red? What does it mean that it comes from a place of red? By the way, redhead Shinjis. Makes sense, like blood, right? That's where it is. It's there. Everyone's like, oh, redheads, right? Like why are they more fiery? Esav was fiery. Esav literally was from that world of Torah. Are they very wild? They're like, no, they're good. They're delicious. So really it's secondary. So I think it like changes our perspective a little bit. Like how we think of people. Like we think of people, we're like, oh, like, oh, my Yaakov's son, he's the angel, right? And my Esav, yeah, he's the troublemaker, right? Like sometimes, anybody else do that? Like compare their kids, right? Like everyone has like one easy one. My mother was just saying it. Everybody has a Nechama, like, and she named one of like in every one of our families. Like everybody has that one kid who's gonna be whining and screaming, whatever. And you could just look at them and be like, they come from a higher place. They come from a greater place. Like, instead of viewing them as like, oh, that's my childmaker. That's the one I need to leave home with the babysitter. No, that's the one that's actually a little bit more special because it comes from the world of Tohu. And like, sometimes we don't understand these kids and we like label them and we're like, oh, it's this and it's that. I'll put a Ritalin patch on the kid as they walk into school. I'm a school psychologist. That was like, I remember on my internship, like somebody said that to me and I was like, really? Like, that's what we're trying to do? We're thinking all these Asavs, I'm like, Yaakov, right? Whatever it is to get them to be able to stay focused and to sit. Yaakov, Ishtam, Yoshev Elohim. Esav was like in the fields, right? My mother-in-law always says, like, these kids don't need to be sitting in school. They need to be working on a farm. Not all kids. Scholastically, like, I would say 30% of kids can manage it in the school day. 70% of the kids need to be ish sadeh. They need to be on the field. Like, there's no doubt about it. And it's like, you see it in a kid. It's like innate, built into them. Like, you have those kids who are like, they're 7 months old and they're like playing in the mud. And you're like, why? Like, and you have to use an entire package of wipes to clean this kid everywhere you go. And it's just like, if you imagine that this soul comes from a higher place, it's from the top of the building. It's from the top of the wall. They're coming from a place of Tohu. It's even higher. It's more spiritual. You have these people who like work with kids that are like off the derech or kids that are struggling. And you're like, how did he do it? Like my uncle, Shammai Bobstein, Rebs, he's from Muncie. He's like the most incredible powerhouse of a person that he was like, anybody who had a kid or a family member that went to like Rebs or like Reb Shammai's yeshiva, like they know those are the kids that come from Tohu. And then you meet my uncle and you're like, he comes from Tohu. Like, this makes sense. He's got ADD. He's shaking more than anybody that I ever know. And it's because, and then he knows how to conjure up using his Nefesh HaBahamis correctly, and then he could deal with those kids from Tohu. Yeah, that's what he said, right. It's an unbelievable thing when you have that kayach and you understand it. When you don't understand it, it's something that you don't even want to know, and you don't engage in. But the minute you start to realize what this neshama is, and if it's inside of you, and you have creativity flowing inside of you, and you're like, oh my God, how do I get this out there? You start with a rough draft. You start writing it, and you start writing it, and you start writing it. Like today was my father's shloshim. And I was planning on speaking at the Shoshim. And of course, even though like I speak all the time, I was like, oh my God, I want to just do the best job in the entire world for my father. And I don't know how to. And there were so many things that were coming to my mind. I'm like, I sat by the aisle for like 4 hours, and instead of writing a kvittel, I was writing my speech. I was like, hey, nobody knows. Like, I'm just writing, right? Like, sometimes I write songs, and sometimes I was literally, I'm like writing out a speech. I'm like, I want to figure out like who my father was. And sometimes I do it in my head. Sometimes I do it in writing. And it became like the messiest, most beautiful thing in the entire world. And then it was so cool because when you go to the aisle, like you rip up your letters. So I was like, this was all my rough draft. I have everything now in my head. I know what I want to say. I was able to do it, but it was tohu. And then I went to the aisle, I went to the caver and I like ripped it up and I threw it out and I was like, this is what it means to work on a first draft and then you own it. And every time you finish that first draft of whatever you were doing, and even if you messed up, whatever it is, you start over and you keep going and going. Like, I was a perfectionist as a kid, and like, my father used to call me like the ooh girl. Like, before it was like a thing like, oh, no, this is not good, this is not good. I would make a batch of cookies and it burnt, throw it out, right? Like, I make ice cream and something came out wrong, throw it out. Everything has to be like perfect, right, this, that. This was like pre-Instagram days and before filters, right? Like, so everything had to be perfect, but I didn't understand that part of the process is going through tohu. As your body is integrating to the second neshama, it has to go through chaos. It's going to feel it. And teenagers, judge them favorably. Like, it's just so not fair to them. They have no idea what's happening inside their body, but know that it comes from a holier place. So this second neshama that we were always like, this is nefesh elokes, this one comes from Hashem. This is actually Hashem mamish. It is secondary to what tohu is. So for me, this like just blew my mind that like, wow, like these neshamas are good. Okay. So when we say chelak elokam mimal mamish, we said mamish like it actually is a piece of Hashem. So like you could say like inside of me, I have a piece of Hashem. Like you are Hashem, right? Like teachers love to say this, like when it comes to like Tanya, it's like you are Hashem's princess, right? Like this is who are you. You are a walking piece of Hashem. You are chelak elokam mamish. But deeper explanation than this is that, like mamish that you sing actually is like in mamashas. That means that in physicality, like physically, when you are here in this physical world, you also have a piece of Hashem inside of you. Like you might think like, oh, I have a piece of Hashem inside of me when I go to the next world, or when I'm like Deri Holy and I'm at the Kosel, or when I'm like Rosh Hashanah. No. In physicality, like mamashas, like when you are in your most physical place, that part of Hashem is living inside of you and it's shining and it's glowing. So it really is like an actual piece, okay, of Hashem. Anybody have any questions on that so far? Like I feel like we're just going very fast. No? We're good? Yeah? Okay, fine. Everyone's just like quiet, it's calm, it's good. Okay, fine. So let's try to understand a little bit of what this means that Hashem blew it inside of us. So it says, K'moshe kasov, vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim. What is that? What do we know from like childhood days of like Hashem, like blowing in this neshama? What do we know? The Kumzitzon? What is it?
The one we discussed in the first one, the little neshama.
Oh, come with me, little neshama, right? What?
It on voice recorder.
The neshama one? You don't know the neshama song? Maybe Romberg, right?
Singing something else.
Oh, you're singing
This is
something.
like a Beis Yaakov camp situation.
Which one?
I'm not singing it now.
She's not gonna sing it now. Okay, so chelak elokam mimal mamish. It's an actual mamash piece of Hashem. And how did it come into us? Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim. Hashem blew into our nostrils this breath of life, this neshama. How do we say breath in Hebrew? Neshima, yes. That's why I love Hebrew, because every word means something else. It's neshama, but it's also neshima. Neshima is your breath, right? Like everybody's so into breath work now. All of a sudden, we're tapping into this neshama, this world that was so very much into our nefesh habahamis, is all of a sudden doing breath work all day. Why? Because we realize that our breath is what? Our breath is like mamashas. It is Hashem within inside of us. That's what allows us to breathe. I know it's so cool. It like makes me so happy because I'm like, the nefesh habahamis is our blood. The nefesh elokes is our breath. Like it's like so beautiful to think how like our whole body's created. Like it is in the head, right? So somebody was here last week and we were talking about how I forgot who she was saying that maybe Esther Ween said that really that the breath comes in from here.
Yeah, that's what she says.
That really it's all connected. You ever go to like an ENT and then like you're like your nose, your mouth, and your ears, like it's all connected, right? Your breath comes. Is somebody here? Or the door is just like magically opening. I'm like, is it Ileana?
No.
Like it could be.
Another level of creepiness.
I know my phone. So shit. Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I said enough. I said it last night. I'll send out the speech. how I had a dream about my father. Someone told me I was going to have a dream. And I'm like, of course, if you tell me I have a dream, then I'm going to have the dream. And then I was trying to explain the dream, the story. And my sister-in-law was like, wait, here, I saw my father in the dream. She's like, Tati was on the belt. I was like, no, I was on the belt. You know, when you're like, but when it's happening, it feels so real. And then all of a sudden you're in there and the like details make no sense. But the more you talk about it, then you forget it. So I'm like, no, I don't want to say that. I just want to remember it how I remember it. So anyways, sorry about that. This Vayipach Ba'apas Nishas Chaim. So I'm not sure. I'm sure it's like Shiva Panim LaTorah, but like the way that he describes it here is that he blew it into our nostrils. But when we say it's in the head, when you breathe in, it really is. It's all over here. Well, the girls who are like mentioning this idea that the neshama is really in your brain. We spoke about this in the last class of Tanya that like the headquarters for the Nefesh Elokis is in your head. So it's right over here. It's the headquarters. So it was blown into our nostrils and it was a piece of Hashem. So now let's talk a little bit about breath because it's obviously something that's keeping us alive, right? Like you feel your pulse, your breath, right? That comes through you. So what is breath? Happens to be like 6 years ago, I had vocal cord surgery. I totally misused my voice, not from screaming at my children, but I had polyps on my vocal cords and like for years and it was terrible and I had to have them removed and then I couldn't talk for a week and it was like really fun. My kids like were taking like full on advantage of this entire thing. Like anytime, I literally could not say one word for 5 days. I was like texting, I was doing that like voice to text, and it was like, go to bed. Like, no, you cannot get a haircut and cut off 8 inches of your hair. And she just cut off her hair. Remember, y'all got like a massive haircut that week, and they're like, can we have a sleepover? And I'm like, no. But I couldn't talk, and then I realized everything after I had this surgery, after it was done, I had to go to voice therapy. And one of the things that they teach you is that your breath comes from where? From your stomach. In order to use your speech practice, my sister-in-law's not here, Shifra, but she's also doing it right now. What? Bracha. You for sure. Oh my gosh, literally. Tell us about, why am I talking here? Like the camera should turn to you. So tell us, what do you know about breath? I know,
Just like move a little.
Quick turn you on there? No. She's just here to chill. So what do we tell us about the breath? Like where does it come from? How does it get from here to here? And it really is combined with this.
I feel very put on the spot right now.
Oh yeah? Okay, no pressure. How do you use your voice? Like how do you bring it up the most? From
diaphragmatic breathing.
Right.
Saying with your diaphragm. With
your diaphragm, right? So that comes from down here. It's inside of you. The concept that Hashem gave a part of himself to us through breath. Breath comes from the deepest place inside of you. It comes from like the depths. Like we think that like, oh, Hashem is spiritual and he's like floating above. No, he's like literally the piece of Hashem is inside of us in mamashos through our breath. It's like from this depth, from the depths inside of us. Like if you try to use your voice just from here, from talking, you could talk way longer than you could blowing and breathing. And I know this because when I was like doing voice therapy, I had to like blow through a straw and I was like, ooh, right? And like, hey, it was like stretching out letters. I was like, what am I doing? Anybody who ever did voice therapy will know this. And it's a very cool thing, but it's much, much harder to constantly use your breath versus speech. What Hashem gave to us is something that's inside of us from the deepest place, and it was a literal part of him through his breath. So, because it's hard for us to understand, like, what does it mean that Hashem gave us a part of himself that's inside of me? But if you think about it living through your breath and then it culminates in speech, it actually is a part of Hashem. So, hold on one second. When Hashem created this world, what did Hashem use to create this world? What kayach did Hashem use? Speech. How? How did he create this world?
And it was.
Vayihi ar, and then it was, right? And Vayihi, then it was Choshech, and then, right? Vayihi ar, and then he split the sea. Everything came through speech, right? When Hashem created this world, he created the world with speech. When he created us, he used his breath. What's the difference between that? Speech is the thing that comes outside of you. It's external. It's something that started over here, originated over here, but when it comes out, it's separate from you. Your breath is you.
It's the same thing as like our class with like the sun and
the rays.
Oh, that was my first class.
Oh, yes, the sun and the rays. That inside the sun is Hashem. The thoughts are is
So
the
it's
sun.
superficial
And the reason.
and
So speech is
breath
secondary
is-
to breath. Because think about what happens before the speech. Your breath. You need to tap into your breath in order for your breath to go through your vocal cords in order to produce speech. So your breath comes first. So when Hashem created the world was with speech. But with us, he used his breath to be able to give over to us. So it was much more mamashas. It's much more real. It is the sun. Oh my gosh. Forgot about that, Masha. Right.
Except
Okay.
the sun and the rays were the same thing.
The sun and the rays. So
No,
really the
it's
speech
an
and the
extension.
thought and it's an extension. So the speech is the extension of it, but the
This
breath
is
is the
it.
actual it. That makes sense? I'm not fully sure either. I don't fully grasp all these concepts, but like I said, we're just getting ourselves used to this language because this is what we're going to be learning when Mashiach comes. So let's at least be a little deja vu, we did this. Okay, so inside. Okay, so he says inside. Over here, he says, so Hashem gave over his breath. He blew into his nostrils a soul of life. Ata nafachta bi, right? Those words sound familiar? Ata nafachta bi, ata, right? Okay, neshama, right? So we say it every single morning. Now we're going to always think about that. Yid on his way to the Nova Festival, singing that song. Yeah, I know, because and he understood, he knew what was happening. So I think about that. But ata nafachta bi, you blew inside of me, and it says in the Zohar, it says ma'an din napach. Mitoach napach, that he who blows from within him. So the fact that Hashem gave us life in this mashal of breath means that he blows from inside of him to give to us. We're trying to understand what does it mean that we have a chelik al kami ma'al mamish, right? We go into Yechidus with the Rebbe, we're like, okay, so what's wrong with me? And he's like, don't worry, you have a nefesh hamas. Okay, great. Also, by the way, you have a nefesh elokis. And you know where that nefesh elokis comes from? It comes from Hashem itself. Really? What does that mean? I have no idea what that means. No, it's mamish, a piece of Hashem. Why? How do I know that? Because vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. He gave his breath over to us. He gave a piece of himself over to us. So the Tanya actually gives two mashalim. He says one of this mashal of understanding how Hashem came into us, one of them is through breath. He said, blowing tires a person much more quickly than speaking, as it's readily observed, for it requires a greater exertion of effort and vitality. So the fact that the metaphor of blowing is used to describe Hashem, it's saying that he gave a piece of his innermost part of himself into us. Okay. Then he gives another mashal. This one's not as I totally fully understand it. This mashal is the way that Hashem actually created us. In order for us to understand how Hashem gave a part of us, he gives this other mashal. And he says like this. This is where I didn't get up to highlighting. Hold on one second. Oh, okay. So he says okay. So another mashal, he says, okay, kach al derech mashal. Here's another mashal. Neshamas Yisrael alu b'machshava. Speaking about how the Jewish souls rose into Hashem's thought, right? Hashem had this idea to create us, and then he gave it over through breath. What was this mashal? He says, kidduch sid. B'ni b'chori Yisrael, banim atem l'Hashem Hashem Aleichem. He says that Bnei Yisrael, they're my firstborn. We have this idea, it says Bereshis, B'shil Rashis, that Hashem created this world for Bnei Yisrael. By the way, the Beis in Bereshis is the two neshamos that Hashem gave us. That's one of the ideas. It says, Banim atem Hashem Lechem, Pirish K'moshe haben nimshach mimoach ha'av. Just like the father is derived, just like a child is derived from his father's brain, so he uses the metaphor, so too the soul of every Jew is derived from Hashem's thought through his wisdom. So it's a little bit of a biology class here, and I'm not going to go into crazy detail here, but the idea where just like how a child is born, so too we were born of Hashem. Obviously, Hashem doesn't give birth to us, and obviously it's just all a mashal, and we shouldn't get too caught up in it. But this idea that when a child is born, physically, how is a child born? Obviously comes from the father, right? There's one drop that comes from the father, and that drop originated in the head. And the way that it started in the head and then manifested through the body and then was caught by the womb of a mother, inside that sperm, inside that one dot created inside of that was the genetic code for this entire child. And then together with the mother, in the womb of the mother, it develops into something totally new, a whole new thing that came from the thought of the father. Because if you think about it emotionally, the way that it all works is it has to start out in the head. It has to come from over here. And then it comes out physically as literally like a cell, like a DNA code that contains within everything. And then that develops into something else. This is the mashal that he gives for how Hashem thought of creating us, and then we were developed. It's the craziest thing. It's the biggest miracle in the entire world, how a child is formed and created. And it almost could be what is actually happening here? If you think about a child, right? A child that's formed, right? That's even before it's fully formed. Before it's fully formed, it contains within it everything that is going to be. It's like this genetic code of what is going to be. Blue eyes, blonde hair, right? Big hands, small feet, short stature, tall stature. Everything is within there. And by the way, it could be that, let's say this child is born and is the most incredible musician. And you're like, well, where did this come from? The father doesn't play any music. The mother doesn't play any music. Oh, they had a great-grandfather that was like a chazan. That was musical. What, now it comes out 3 generations later? That's such a weird thing, right? Do you ever hear this idea that during the Holocaust, people who were malnourished, they were very short, and they come out, their kids are like giants. And you're like, what happened there? It skipped a generation? Because inside of that genetic code is essence. It's mamashas. It's not just blue hair is blonde, blue eyes, blonde hair. It's not just that. They look like my father, my kids. Nobody looks like me. They're all Bloomsteins. I don't get it. I have them for 9 months. They develop inside of my womb, and somehow they all look like all my sister-in-laws. It doesn't make any sense, right? But it does, because everyone's like, oh, they have strong genes. What does that mean? It's fine. My brother's kids all look like my mother's. I'm like my family, so it's fine, right? Sarah has no chance. So now I know what Sarah feels like, right? I know. Those kids are that's a Bloomstein, right? They just know, right? And it's funny because everyone's like, oh, Faigy, you look like a Bloomstein. I'm like, just because I have freckles doesn't mean what happens to me. I do, right? But because what is inside that genetic code, not just how they're going to their features are going to be, it contains mamashas, it contains essence of that person. You know how we say neshamos that come back into the world, you name a child after a grandparent, right? What is that? Because I want to tap into their essence, something that not necessarily can be seen, physically. It's just cool, or you just got a chill.
I don't know. Wait.
No, I'm not sure. I'm always that one who's always I just jerked. I'm I think I'm cold, but I couldn't control that. I don't know what happened.
Everything's cool.
It's
One
so
big
cool,
show for the
right?
whole class.
It's the coolest concept that your child has a piece of your essence. I started to see it now because my daughter, she left, but she's I think when I grow up I want to be a motivational speaker. I'm like, what? She's like, not because you speak. I'm telling you, it's not because you speak. I'm like, I wonder where that came from, right? No, not that I ever planned that what I was going to be doing and speaking, but.
Can I say what
Yes, my mother has the best story.
Packing up, we're moving here to the Parklands from Brooklyn. I found a certificate that she got in 5th grade from a teacher for excellence in talking. Complimentary.
It was not complimentary. I had to peel off a lot of klipas. My mother sharing a story of how I was an excellence in talking. I still remember Mrs. Dax, right, in 6th grade. Right. I was, and she used to move my seat, Mrs. Dax. Remember her? 6th grade. I happened to have loved her as a teacher, but she would move me to the back and then move me to the front. And she's like, Faigy, what is going on? You just need to spend the day outside class. I'm I can't stop talking. So now I'm okay, I'm utilizing it for the good. And I peeled off those klipas of not getting kicked out of class for, I got sent to the principal for all these things that I said. And now it's okay, so that's a klipa. But this idea where inside of your DNA is mamasha, so he's explaining it, this mashal, to explain how Hashem is giving over a part of himself. Just like the thought originates in the brain of the father and then physically develops in the womb of the mother, so too Hashem is giving over his breath, and it enlivens us, and it not just enlivens us, it makes us who we are. Just like Hashem is tzanua, we're tzanua. Just like Hashem is a racham, like b'chanon, kel, rachamim, chanon, erech hapayim, right? All those midas are rachamim. Bottom line is, we have that also. Because Hashem gave a part of himself to us, literally to become alive, we now have that inside of us. That's what's flowing inside of us. So it's a really cool concept when you think that this neshama is not just a standalone, and it's not just something that's lofty and spiritual. It's actually something that's very much connected to this world. It's very mamish, it's mamashas, because it's inside of us physically, but at the same time, it's also coming from Hashem, and he's putting himself inside of us. Okay, so we're gonna end here because this is like a lot of information to digest. But I'll take questions because it's like not like something that like I fully grasp. I didn't even have enough chavrusa time with Sabora, so I'm not. You know, it's not her fault. It was like Tanis Esther. So if anybody has questions. Yeah. Okay. No, I feel like we could like make this like. Also, by the way, if anyone needs to go, it's like okay. I'm like it's 10:00. We could stop.
You're saying
but
that
I want to hear if like questions because like I'm still like it's all like coming into my mind.
What
Also.
you're saying about like the clear layers, are you saying that it's, let's say, character traits that are really good, but then when you have this like film over it, it could seem bad, and then you peel it to be the good? Like
Yes. So last week, the way that we presented it was like he's the bad guy, harness its power. But now we're reiterating that it's not bad. Bless you, it's not bad. It's actually just covered in a klipa by default because of the sin of the Itzadas.
So we have klipas because of the.
We have klipas. Klipas started, like where did it start? It started with eating from the tree. Why? Because we ate it. It got mixed into us at that point. When we ate from the tree.
Everything beforehand.
Everything before was black and white. This is good, this is bad. This is good, this is
We
bad.
had clarity
What is it
beforehand,
now?
and now we
You know what I'm
don't.
saying? What is it
Now we just keep sifting. The whole idea is of sift and peel off layers till you see the good thing in everything. Because by the way, if something did not have good, it would cease to exist. So the only way that you know something's alive, by the way, like a weight, like a litmus test for something to be alive, is that the only way that it could be alive is if it has good in it. By the way, like Haman, the fact that Haman was alive for a nice amount of time meant that there was something in there that needed to be captured. A klipa had to be removed from Haman. And once that was done, the only one who was really killed in the beginning in the story of it was Haman and his 7 sons. We had to get rid of Haman. Eventually they went out and Yehudim, they won the war. But the whole idea of removing Haman and then we stayed in Shushan meant that we just peeled off the klipa of Haman and then we were able to stay there.
But not all klipas.
But not all klipas are redeemable. And the things that are not, like what's an example of something that's not redeemable?
Well, not something that's not kosher food.
Right, not kosher food, shellfish, right? Shellfish, Hashem says, this one, this klipa, you don't have to, shellfish has a very thick klipa. There's no klipas noga there. It's
Like
not.
kashrus would be a klipa.
Kashrus is a klipa, yeah.
Like basically, you can't just bite out of an animal. You have
Right.
to do kashrus, so then you can eat it.
Yeah,
Just
so
go
right,
right.
right.
You know
It's
what I meant,
extreme,
right?
but but most things in this world have klipas noga. The way that we know what to stay away from, ka'alacha, is when Hashem says that's usher. Certain relationships that you can't have, right? You can't marry your aunt, right? An uncle, a nephew's not allowed to marry his aunt. That's such a weird thing. That's a klipa. Hashem says, don't go there. That's an irredeemable klipa. There's nothing good that you're going to be able to pull out of that. Lobsters, don't worry about that. It's fine. You don't even have to go there. A cow, kosher it, and then it becomes kosher, and then you can have it, right? And get rid of the blood, and don't eat the gedanasha, and then you can do it. So really, all halacha is telling us, it's guiding us on what to peel and what not to peel. So if it tells me I can't have a relationship with this person, I know don't go there, right? Like people, like I work in Kiev in the city, and it's like marrying Jewish or marrying not Jewish. Like, okay, I know this guy's not Jewish. I know that that's a guy I can't date. A guy who spends a lot of money, doesn't have the best job, I'm not sure. It's questionable, like how much klipa I should pull away from that. But certain relationships that you know that you can't get yourself involved in, you're like, that's a thick klipa, I don't have to. But also, you should know if anything's alive and existing, there's a klipa there for you to be able to remove it. There is. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. Like, we were like, as we were preparing this, I know we were saying how, like, certain nations, they're no longer here, right? Like, the golden age of Spain, right? Been there, done that. Like, what happened then? All the klipas of Spain, we took out everything. Think about the golden age of Spain. I was just doing this with my daughter for Hysteria. And it was like all these poets and all this art that was written in Spain, right? And then all of a sudden, the Inquisition, boom, it's gone. Nobody ever even really cares about Spain other than going to Ibiza, right? Like, it's not, is that in Spain? I'm not sure. I don't even know. It's probably not. It's probably its own country. But this idea where Spain was literally a superpower, and the second they kicked us out and we extracted all the klipas, that's, by the way, Gullus. Why do we in Gullus? Why are we here in the Five Towns? Why are people in South Africa? Why are people there? Because there's klipas there you have to peel off. So the second something stops existing, you're like, oh, that's not here anymore. It's not. It's only would exist if there's any good in it. So Mitzrayim, we don't have to go back there. It doesn't really exist anymore. So that's
Right,
what
okay.
I do.
I think I was thinking of klipas are like internal, like who we are.
There are.
They could be.
Yes.
So it's two different things.
Yeah.
It's external.
So there are
and
external
internal.
klipas on the outside, and klipas inside of us that we have to remove.
So
Yeah,
here's a
'cause
question. Before the
And-
Feast of the Eight Sadas,
Yeah.
there was clarity of like what you could do, what you can't do, and now we have to figure that out.
Yes.
So
Now we
why
have a
was-
moral
so
compass.
Did they still have klipas within them that caused them to sin? Like,
When the original one
meaning,
happened,
like, were they on the same level of malachim?
yeah,
Right.
basically,
so then
because
how did
all
we
they
even
had.
get to sin.
The sin, yeah.
That's the question.
So
It's
that's
like-
because the bad that was outside caused them to do it. The snake.
Well, there's,
Right.
There's also like a very interesting. I have like a small YouTube clip of explaining that like it wasn't necessarily like a new.
It wasn't
a bad thing. It wasn't a sin.
Wasn't a bad thing,
Chava was
right.
supposed to do that to open up the realm of this world for us to be in it. It was part of her like her mission.
It was part of her mission. She took
Yeah.
one for the team. I know it's
Yeah.
funny. I always think like when we were kids, we thought that this was the worst thing to
Like,
ever have
ruined
done.
everything for everyone.
But they ruined everything forever.
Like,
Birth pains
5 minutes
forever.
in and she's
Labor
done.
delivery. Now we have pain during childbirth. Now we have
Right.
pain making money, right? But it was all on purpose. When the first time I heard this was like my first class from Chabad, I was like, "What? She did it on purpose?"
Yeah.
Like, right? You know.
Have a really good-
Okay, I'm gonna end this here. Thank you so much for joining.
I think I'm alive.
I just